What are the barriers for professionals to share information with carers?
So the main barriers are one, where the patient refuses consent to share any information with their carers. And the second one is linked to the professional's own codes of practice, which tie them to adhering to confidentiality, and that if they breach confidentiality without proper rationale, then they would be subject to disciplinary proceedings. There are also some concerns within professionals that if they spend time with the carer and talking to the carer, they're taking time away from the patient, and they don't want to do that.
Right, so what can a professional share with me if the person hasn't given consent?
If the person hasn't given consent, the professional can still talk to you about what you already know. So if you already know the diagnosis, they can still talk to you about that and the treatment that would be involved. If you know about the treatment that's taking place, such as the medication they're on, they can talk to you about that and what side effects might be in place. And they can talk to you generally about what you already know. What they can't talk to you about is specific pieces of information that the patient might have said no to for you not to hear. Good practice in those circumstances, when a patient says, I don't want to share information with the carer, would be that the team actually sit down with the patient when they're well particularly and discuss the pros and cons of sharing information. And that will be a very good thing to do, particularly when the person is well, to cover times when they're not well, so that if a change in consent takes place because of the illness, then it's already covered in the agreement.
Would a carer be allowed to sit in on this discussion when the person is well?
I think that would be very good practice, because again, the carer is often the person who is most closely involved in the support of the individual outside of hours. I mean, services are involved some of the time, but there's a long part of the week where services are not available. So the carer is almost there all of the time. They also know the person quite well, and they're very close to hand to be able to observe changes in behaviour or early warning signs that might be acted upon to prevent a more significant deterioration for the person. So involving the carer at that point is likely to produce a much better plan than it just being the patient and the professional talking about it. Again, it's getting the agreement of the patient when they're well to involve this person and to involve their carer to be supportive.
How can a carer become involved in the care planning?
One of the first things would be to approach the care coordinator and with the patient, so to discuss with the patient how they would like you involved in their care, and then it's good practice to invite carers to CPA meetings, to review appointments, and to involve them in developing the care plan with the consent of the patient. Because there is that part to it that needs to be accommodated. But good practice is that really carers are increasingly partners in the provision of care, because they carry out so much informal caring outside of what's provided by services, that they do need the support to do that, because the caring role itself is stressful, because they may find themselves in the middle of a crisis, and if they don't have the information about what to do and how to handle it, then they will feel very stuck, and it'll make it worse for them, and probably that will pass on to the patient because they're not able to get the support. Is that something you agree with?
Yes, I do, very much so. From my point of view, the more you're involved, the easier the job of caring is, because you've got more understanding, and it does relieve a lot of the stress you're under. But what support and help is there out there for carers?
It really can depend, because sometimes good practice would be that services not only provide a carer's assessment, which is a statutory thing. You should really have a carer's assessment to assess your own needs in the context of the care role you're carrying out. Equally, you can also access disorder specific. So if someone has an eating disorder or psychosis, there may be carers, support groups or charities or voluntary sector organisations who have experience of supporting people. And in Dorset we have, of course, the Dorset Mental Health Forum, which is originally set up for the support of service users, but has taken on some support for carers as well. So we're fortunate in that in Dorset, and I suppose the Recovery Education Centre now carries out courses that help carers understand their role, help carers understand the diagnosis, and it's all co-produced between professionals and carers and patients. So it's much more of a partnership, which again is very good practice in my view.
And if, as a carer, you hit a brick wall with professionals and they're not going to help you share information or nothing, they just use the word confidential and that is it, where does a carer go to get more help, to open up things so that they can get some information, even if it's general? Because that can be a very difficult situation. If a carer is very determined to try and help and very caring and wants to be involved in the care and is only being told, I can't tell you anything based on confidentiality, then that's not good. And really getting maybe support in the form of an advocate to come with you to articulate what it is that you want the support with, because again we have to manage the patient's right to confidentiality alongside the benefits of involving a carer, both for the patient and for the carer. So advocacy is one way of doing it. If you still feel completely stymied, then every NHS organisation has a PALS system where you can go through PALS and you can raise concerns, and then more formally you can go through the complaints system within the NHS to try and see that. The thing is, none of those things will be able to overturn a patient's refusal to share information. However, it may encourage better practice and better recognition that carers have rights to information, particularly about things they already know. So that would be some of the ways I would suggest that perhaps if you're really coming up against a barrier, to get support or to use the organisation's own systems to try and bring about some change. I think I would add to that helping professionals understand better both the benefits of sharing information with carers and involving carers in treatment and care planning are really quite good, quite huge in many respects. And also the fact that often professionals have outdated ideas about what confidentiality is. So rather than being aware that carers have the same rights, if a carer comes and asks for confidentiality, then they have to get that, they have the same right. But equally, if a carer came to me and said, I want to tell you something, but I don't want you to tell my relative, I would want to sit down with them and understand why they thought that and really talk to them about the benefits of sharing information. I would still respect it if they wanted me to, and I would still react the same way. So confidentiality cannot be used as a blanket barrier to sharing information with carers. Are there any other points you could explain about confidentiality and information sharing?
So one of the most important parts of good care is trust between the professionals, the patients and the carer, all operating as a team together to provide the best possible care they can. And one of the ways that perhaps needs to be really focused on is any agreements that are reached are placed prominently in the records, so that once that agreement is there, everybody knows about it, everybody in the team, the carer, the patient, so that the carer doesn't experience what people have told me they do. They come along one day and they're told something, and the next day they're told it's confidential, because that person isn't aware of the agreement. So good practice would be to make sure that was prominently available and communicated with everybody involved in the care, so that everybody is singing off the same hymn sheet and everyone is involved in a trusting relationship about sharing information.